my whole career seems like a highlight to me. Not that it was special all the time, but I never wanted to be a cop. And when I became one, it was all I ever wanted to do.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. In a car accident, driving 100 miles an hour will not kill you. It's the sudden stop that does the damage. A fast-paced life becomes unsustainable as you age and your priorities shift. Having the clarity to slow down or hit the brakes is where the difficulties lie. You spend your whole life living an ethos, becoming connected to your vocation, knowing that it was what you were meant for. When the rug is removed from underneath your feet and you no longer have the stability that has been steadfast every day, you're lost. You walk into the wilderness with no compass and no experience. Not everybody was meant to slow down. The day you feel you are irreplaceable is the day it's time to go. There is so much beyond the door if you have the courage to walk through. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Falaise, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Please ring the bell to get notified of all of our new content. Now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out exactly what we're up to. And on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we have two guys to talk about the suffering of retirement, but the reason you guys are so important is because you're family. All right, we're all going through it in one way or another. So we have Bobby Crudele and Tom Flynn in here tonight.
Yeah.
And I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart.
You're welcome.
My pleasure.
I got top billing, so that.
Yeah. On the marquee.
This is going to be wild tonight. So before we get into anything, let's give a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. We don't trust anybody as police, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So gentlemen, social media question. This one is not from Schmevin Schmonelson. Like the other one.
Crazy ass name.
So this one's coming from user with a Z, user B. How much do you trust your gut in your decision-making process? So both of you guys, I know you relied heavily on your instincts. So I think that's what it is, right? Instincts, your gut reactions. As police officers, you relied on your instincts. When something wasn't right, usually it isn't right. Your gut is always your third eye. So in your soon-to-be post-career life, how much do you rely on your gut? I'm going to go to Flynn first, since you got top billing.
There you go. Big star over there. So, I think it's a learned behavior. So your gut, like you said, in a tactical situation, something on the job, you go in on instinct right away, and that serves you well. But for me, as time has grown on, conflict with others, I've learned to give pause. And over time, I think I'm getting better at it. I'm trying to be a better man, time going on, where I might have snapped on somebody, given my big stature amongst you titans of the gymnasium. But I've learned...
He's trying to work with us.
I've learned...
Testosterone, my man.
Yeah. I got to find me some of that. Do you have any?
Got some for you.
All right, spare pocket. But as time went on, I think I learned to give a tempered response, think it out first, and I think that gut is serving me much better than the original one.
Sounds good, Bob.
That's a great answer, actually. For me, I got on the job a little later, right? Late 20s, early 30s, in that area. So I already was on the, had a regular job. I worked. I was more of a street guy. I understood what was going on. I always had a sense, like a gut, like, this ain't right. I knew when somebody was a little off. I just had that. Then as my police life, I became a detective early on, and it served me really well because I always had that gut feeling about something.
Did you when you were younger, though? This is an interesting point, because when you were younger, did you trust it?
I did.
See, that's rare.
Because after a few times of being like, this, I just know. When you know, but you don't know, but you knew. Mm-hmm. Not to sound confusing, but that's exactly what it is. And then as a kid, you're like, oh, I could kind of see things before they happen, or I can feel things are happening. I just knew this isn't a bad, you go into something and I'd be like, this isn't a good situation. Although everybody else thought it was fine, I would be like, have a, eyes in the back of my head, and most of the time I was right.
You're picking up on little cues. You're picking up on behaviors. You're picking up on eye movements. You're picking up on hand movements. Most of the world is blind to that stuff.
Conversations. You have a conversation with people. You read people, right? I'm always reading people. I have a conversation with you. I'm reading you. Obviously we're really good friends. So, but when I first met you, I was reading you. I was reading your body language. I was reading the way you spoke, the things that you said, the things that you touched on, and I'm forming, not judging you, but I'm figuring out your character, right? And that's all gut stuff.
It's a wrestling match.
It's not like it's scientific. It's not supernatural. It's a feeling you have. So I had if I don't like you, it's a gut feeling.
Right.
And it could be right from the get-go. That's the thing about me, and I'm rarely wrong about that. Why don't you like that guy? I just don't like him, and I know, and then it may come out that you were right about that guy. He's messed up or whatever it is.
It does reveal itself over time.
Yeah, and that's a natural part, but I do believe it's a learned behavior as you go through a job and you see if you're investigating, right? I see this, and now it's muscle memory, right? So you're like, I've seen this 100 times. I know exactly what this is. And then it's in your gut. You know what I mean? So you're sort of learning it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, because when you have that gut feeling and you employ certain techniques that you learn while you're on the job, now all of a sudden you have this gift. It is a gift because not everybody has it.
That's right.
You have this gift, and if you employ witness analysis or victim analysis, statements. And if you think somebody's guilty, you ask them to describe their day from the beginning, what they had for breakfast, and they will give you the most detailed description. I had this happen. And then when the point you think that they're lying about, they'll brush right over it.
For sure.
So you just solidified what you thought.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring this when I was younger, and that's why I brought that up to you. I knew when something wasn't right, I ignored it. And it there's been relationships in my life where you're like, yeah, something's wrong here. But yeah, you know what? It seems like a good idea. Yeah. And you do it. And how's it end? It always ends well. But if I bring this into my podcast life, there are times when I schedule a guest and I will say, man, I just don't have a good feeling about this one. I'm telling you, I've only been wrong once on it, where I'm like, this person's not going to come in. They're going to cancel out. I've only been wrong once. And it surprised the hell out of me.
Sign of a good cop,
yeah.
Right?
Nobody's perfect. Skill. No one bats 1,000,
So that gut, if you can learn, and that's where the learned behavior is, learning how to trust your gut. For me, anyway, if I've learned over the years to trust my gut.
Yeah.
We had some stuff going on. We had other guests in here that canceled out this week, and your gut served you well. So you called me, I don't think it's going to happen. I swear to you, this is the craziest thing in the world. What was it? Tuesday afternoon we had this conversation, and the guest canceled out Tuesday night.
Yeah, sure enough.
And it wasn't by any fault of their own, and I don't hold that against them.
No, and you just know people. You know what I mean? And you know situations, and you got information. So if I have intel and I see something, and then I bring in my feeling like, this isn't the right time, and this isn't gonna work. I just knew that,
I personally think Bobby was putting the kibosh on things so he could come in here. That's
the juju. He's putting the juju out there.
It's so funny because, I can just come in here anytime I want. That's the funny part. You know what I mean? I could just say, hey, you're out. I'm in tonight, whoever you are.
There he goes. He's in his bathrobe and boxers. He just walked in. He got a cup of
Unless
sugar
it's the
and left.
Navy SEAL. I'm not going to test that guy, but anybody else. Not De Palma either. I don't want to roll around with him.
You might have been able to test him. I think he could have done it. I think he could have.
Yeah.
De Palma? No.
De Palma's a whole nother animal.
No, I don't think he feels pain.
No.
So, User B, thank you so much for sending in that question. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. And while you're at it, go see Gus over at Cubita Cafe. That's 234 Franklin Avenue in Nutley. Gus has some of the most amazing food. He's a classically trained chef. Used to work at Le Cirque. He knows his business. He knows his stuff. He knows what you like. He'll look at you. He's like, I'm going to make you something. You sit right there. He's done it to me a dozen times already. And Gus isn't in the food business. He's in the people business. And here's a prime example of that. My son, all he asked me to do is go to Cubita Cafe, and I'm like, I got to drive all the way to Nutley, but it's worth the ride because the food's that good. So go see Gus at Cubita Cafe, 234 Franklin Avenue, and tell him the Suffering Podcast sent you. So, gentlemen, we are here to talk about a subject that eventually, if you're lucky, everybody has to go through at least once in your life. But unfortunately, it's like stepping into the wilderness. You know, you've spent your entire lives working towards this vocation, working towards this inevitability to become what you believe that you are. And that's police officer. You know, we're talking specifically about retiring from police departments today. And when it happens, now you're like, oh, shit. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've had some highlights in your career. And without a good police career, your retirement kind of means nothing. So I want to talk about some highlights in your career, something that you're ultra proud of, an event, a case that you worked that you're just so proud of. It kind of makes it's in your highlight reels. Bobby, why don't we start with you?
Well, I mean, it's I never really just to just elaborate a little bit before I get into my highlight. My whole career seems like a highlight to me. Not that it was special all the time, but I never wanted to be a cop, and when I became one, it was all I ever wanted to do. And
You found it.
it's like it found me, I found it, and it was great. And I tried my hardest to fuck it up at times. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm being honest, but I had good people surrounding me. That's a highlight, okay? So I have a friend who's on the police force with me. You know, and this guy too. But I had a friend. I have a friend. His name's Corey. He's actually my supervisor. But we were together the whole way. You know him. You met him.
Yeah, yeah.
He's always had my back, and he's a highlight in general, in my opinion, because it's bigger than friendship. You know, I can't really like even put a finger on it, but like we worked cases together, we did stuff together. It's like we lived together. He's like, if I had to think of one guy that I was on the job with that, you know, and there's a bunch of them, but he's the first guy in my head. But as far as highlights, as far as doing the actual job, I spent 7 years on loan in the narcotics task force, and I did my best work there. I'm a detective by nature, and it suited me well, and I think I did a really good job while I was there. I tried always to serve and do the best I could, and I had some really big jobs over there that made the cover of the Jersey Journal, and like 4 or 5 of them, and you know, they were big, and I was like, wow. I was like, I said this to Mike DePalma. I never knew I could do the things I did as a police officer, like from a detective, from I'm very good with self-defense and things like that. Like, I never knew I could do that stuff. Like, being a cop showed me, like, sort of honed that and brought it into like, wow, I'm really good at this. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like I was really good at being a cop. Like, it was the only thing I could really be good at. Like, I was like, wow, this is my one good thing.
So I've spoken to some people who know you, who, you know, we've never been in the same room together. They just know who you are. And everybody says the same thing. Best detective ever was, that they know. And that's not blowing smoke up your ass, but that's the truth. And I've heard that over and over again. One of the guys on the police department where I live, Paul, all right, says it all the time about you.
It's a great compliment, and you know, one that, you know, it's like loftily, like, you know, I've worked with great detectives. Same thing with football, right? I'm not the greatest coach. I'm not even close to being a great coach. However, I will work harder. And when I was really working as a detective, when I was on loan, and then when I was back, and I did some really good stuff, you know, everybody has ups and downs on the job, you know, and you sort of filter out, and then you're not the same guy you were. It's a long time, 26, 27 years, 25 years. It's a long time to be consistent. I love the job, and I worked the best I could. But, you know, I had my ups and downs where I was like, you know, I'll just do firearms now. And I didn't, like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like at the end there, you know, before I made a boss. But when I made supervisor, I was back up. I was pumped. Now I'm a supervisor. Then I made detective sergeant, and now I'm in charge of this. And it's like real. I felt like rejuvenated. You know what I mean?
Tom, what do you think? What are some of the highlights of your career?
So I have a quick story, and it's going to sound like I'm blowing smoke. But just recently, yeah, not there, someplace else.
Damn. You know we're going to talk about it eventually.
Yeah, listen, maybe.
Just get it out.
Yeah, get it
It
out
just,
now.
I saw the thing he sent today. It was insane. Is it really? Because I got excited. All right, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Tell you stuff.
I was on Zoom, so I zoomed in real big.
But just a little backstory. If anybody ever got our phone text back and forth, Jesus.
Alert the authorities.
My God. My God.
But it's actually we're very recent friends, and just over the weekend I had a chance to. He's looking at me with that. I can't even look at him. But
Just over the weekend, what did you two do?
no, not him and I. But this is a testament.
Someone else.
I'm trying to tell a nice story here.
Okay, go ahead.
So we went to Red Bull Stadium, and it's in his jurisdiction. And it was, by his graciousness and generosity that we were there. It was Mike DePalma and I, and we're parking. And
Did you guys take off your shirts with the letters painted?
yeah, the gigantic
on the nipples.
freshly pierced.
Insane.
Meanwhile, Sputnik's still going up there going, hey, there's Flynn.
Red Bull security was like, go get those two guys.
There's a man that looks like a glow stick. He has to stick out like a sore thumb. So we're parking, and there's a patrol guy, and he's just getting out of the car. And De Palma goes, hey, these are our cars over here. Bobby sent this. And the credit to you here is you should have seen this guy's face light up when they said Bobby. And immediately the guy's face lit up and he goes, Crudele? And we nodded. And that's a testament to your legacy. Like, you have left a lasting impression on a patrolman.
Well, your reputation in the world of police is everything.
It was phenomenal. So that's just something I saw of you.
I appreciate that, yeah.
Absolutely. Heartfelt by this guy. For me, I had a bunch of highs and a very deep low. So one of the first things I got on a job, I was an FTO, long into that. And that's an honor because you're shaping and forming people beneath
It's actually probably the most important part of patrol when you get in a new guy or girl.
Absolutely. And I took the job head on, full force, dive in with every fiber of my being. To my own detriment, to my own family's detriment, I feel. Then I actually rose to the ranks, made sergeant, ran the FTO program. Becoming a boss, one of the things I remember is the squad. So I was in a unique situation. So I was working 4 to 12, 4 p to midnight. And I went from being a patrolman to then being a supervisor, still in uniform with the same guys that were my colleagues the day before.
That's a tough move.
That can be tough.
It is a very difficult thing to navigate, but they gave me this plaque. And, when you get promoted, it's kind of like, that's no big deal. It happens all the time. And they gave me this plaque, from your boys, the original squad. Congratulations, Sergeant Flynn, for all the years of camaraderie. And it just hit me right in the heart. It's like, this is what it's about. Like, I got guys, and here's a side note to the story. As they hand me the plaque, camaraderie is spelled wrong.
So you didn't check the reports too well. Some FTO you are.
And I looked at it, and I didn't want to say anything, but one of the other guys noticed it, and he goes, no, we'll change it. I said, bro, this is exactly perfect, just the way it is. Because we misspelled the word. This is the ragtag bunch that I am very proud to be a part of. And thank you. And I do have one call, if you don't mind me rambling on.
Go ahead.
So I did.
You got 15 minutes left. Go ahead.
I didn't do as much and have a diverse career like Bobby did. I did do SWAT team stuff and some other things. But one call sticks out in my mind. And I had bad ones, people on fire, suicides, all that. But I'm going through the county park. I'm in patrol. I'm supervisor. And I come upon this Hispanic woman in tears, coming up to me, speaking half English, half Spanish. Her 3-year-old child is missing.
Oh, boy.
And the call goes out, and now I'm kind of the lead investigator, kind of coordinating everything else. And the first few minutes turned into 30 minutes and turns into an hour. And you know the statistics. With a young child missing, every minute that goes by is a lesser chance that they're going to be reunited. So we had clothing description and everything else. Flash forward 2 hours later, I see the girl on the corner. Clothing description, everything's a match. I scoop her up, call into headquarters. I got her. And don't tell me about picking up little girls on a quarter because I can feel it.
The joke writes itself.
No. This is a great story. You're ruining it by doing it. We were going to talk about you sitting in the playground later on, and that's probably why that's the biggest low of your.
And it just happens that
we have no idea.
That's a playground. That was my turf.
He was good up till No, go ahead.
A tier 1 offender, still offender, right?
Oh my God, dude.
So, but I have to tell you that the look in that mother's eyes when I was able to take that girl out and bring her to her mother, it's just one that sticks out above the trauma and everything else. It's never made the papers, never made anything else. It was only a couple-hour incident. Best call I've ever had.
So my police career, forget about the arrests, forget about the chases, forget about the accidents, forget about all that stuff. There's a picture. My son is 2.5, 3 years old. Now, I was working so much that my wife, the only time while the kids were up, she would have to bring my son. It was before my second one was born. She would have to bring my son to come see me. And we'd go there's a park there, and I'd hang around with him a couple minutes. There's a picture of my son sitting in between my legs, wearing my hat, and he plays with all the lights and stuff. And the smile on my son's face, that blows me away because he's 14 now, and he barely remembers that. He barely remembers seeing me in uniform, but I'll have that picture ingrained in my mind for the rest of my life. That is the highlight. If there was one thing that's a highlight of my career, my son seeing me and being able to sit in a car with me, and I'm looking and I'm holding him. There's no better feeling in the world than that.
A father's pride.
That's it. So there's you do your job, you do some great things on the job, you make an impact on people's lives. But eventually, we can't do this job forever. In the state of New Jersey, you have to retire when you're 65. You're like 2 years away, right? But eventually it comes to that time where you're going to have to pull the trigger. Whether you think about that early on in your career, because every new officer it's like, I'm going to do 25, I'm going to do 30, I'm going to do this. But it's so far in the distance, it's kind of like a pipe dream. It's like one day I'm going to hit the lottery type of thing. For you, it's a little bit different. For me, it's a little bit different. But you're actually doing your full time, and you're able to walk out with your head held high. And tomorrow, so this is recorded on the 24th of July. On the 25th, Bobby Crudele walks out of, can I say the department?
Yeah, sure.
Walks out of Harrison Police Department and officially retires.
Mm-hmm.
Well done.
What was your decision to pull the trigger?
It's pretty much because it was the right time, and I had a opportunity to do something else afterwards that would make everyone, everything in my life better financially. It allows my kids to pretty much go to school at just about any college that falls under the window, because I'm going to Stevens Institute of Technology, basically almost for free. It's just, I'm going to get a nice pension on top of a nice salary from them with a step program too. Whatever chances for promotion, like to be a supervisor there too. But it's a different way it's a quality of life. It's a community policing type of job, so it's completely different than what I'm doing or used to.
Got to have a little anxiety though. You're stepping out into
I
not unfamiliar territory, but
it's bittersweet. Okay, because I talk about camaraderie. My squad's got sick camaraderie. We're off the hook. The things that everybody. We got a great mix of guys and girls. We got really good supervisors, like from starting with the lower level, like me, the sergeants, the detective sergeants. Then you get into the captains, the lieutenants, and captains. On our side that I work for, we just all get along. There's no infighting. Everybody understands each other, and we eat dinner every night. We get together like we're a real